This is Party Wall Pro, the podcast where surveyors tell you how they first started and how they've grown their business, making it easier for you to get to the top.
Hello everyone. Today we've got Alistair Redler with us from Delver Patman Redler, who's the man when it comes to party wall surveying. And he's been in the business for how long now, Alistair?
Well, this firm 23 years. Since starting work, probably about 28.
28. Oh God. How did you? So tell me from the start. How did you get into surveying?
By accident, almost. I left school with lousy A levels. Did 3 years doing manual labour work. And a cousin of mine, who's a structural engineer and now senior partner of a large firm in the south, recommended that I spend some time with him, seeing what engineers did. And having decided that surveying looked more interesting than engineering, went into it and decided that was a good course I could do. So basically, just it was a good lifestyle rather than a choice.
All right. And so how did you from there go into party wall matters? Like, did you start straight away with just focusing on party wall, or was it just general surveying and then?
No, well, sort of. At Poly, South Bank Poly, and there was a couple of lectures on party walls that I thought were interesting. It was interesting that there was a specialisation that was relatively straightforward, and at that time very boutique, applying only to inner London. And I quite liked the idea of it. And as I got into surveying and working, I found I liked the professional end of surveying better than construction and design. So I got into dilapidations, surveys, and party walls, and sort of external repair works rather than design works. Very much my field. I'm not a designer at all.
Mm-hmm.
So the party wall work, and I used to get as much as I could from the firms I was working in. And eventually, in '92, I thought I'd apply to a firm that was more specialist, and went to and applied to a few people, including Delver Patman, and got the job. So, I mean, I wanted to be more specialist and do rights of light as well. So it was a deliberate attempt to get into this field.
All right. Okay. And how? So tell me, you went to Delver Patman, worked under the wing of who?
Of Delver.
Delver.
Of Delver herself. Delver being extremely experienced and very, very capable.
And then from there on, how do you actually start building your own practice? Because it's like, with my background as a lawyer, you work in a law firm, you work for a partner that hands you the work, and without questioning it, but you don't really have time to go and seek your own instructions, your own clients. So how did you go from working for Delver into slowly getting your own client base, or quickly? I don't know.
I think you do it just by working, actually. I think it's about personality, but I think it's about working. As a practice, we've done almost no marketing, no active marketing, no classic marketing, no cold calls, no taking people to lunch twice a week, no marketing budget, effectively. We managed to do the job, and we do the job, we think, very well. We do it our way. We do it very well. That backed up with doing lectures and articles and just helping people out. It's amazing that one of the best ways of getting your name around is for your rivals to speak well of you, in party wall world particularly, and other negotiating fields like dilapidations and so on. Because if your rivals speak well of you, not only do they want to negotiate with you, because while it may not be the easiest ride, it'll be a fair and honest one, but the clients also can't always go to the same people because of conflict, so you get the contacts that way as well. So basically doing the job best you can, I think.
Mm-hmm. So that's that best you can saying, is that going above and beyond what normal people would just deliver and bill for? And what
Yeah.
What does?
Yeah, I think it's about it's difficult. You've got to know what you're doing, and you've got to be right in knowing what you're doing. There's plenty of people out there, especially now, who think they know what they're doing, who are very got high opinions of themselves, and it's not shared by their compatriots in the way that they think it should be. because they're not as good as they think they are. It's difficult to call that one. I think actually an honest and open approach to yourself and dealing with your colleagues well, whether they're in your firm or outside your firm, because in Party Wall world, people in other firms are colleagues too, or can or should be treated as such. You actually you learn from them, feed off them, and you learn together. I mean, example is in Party Walls is the amount of case law recently that has clarified matters that were bitter dispute between Party Wall surveyors, like rights of access under Section 1, like the foundation detail in Chatterer-Tinder. Now, there are surveyors I highly respect who have been completely wrong on those points by the way the courts turned out. However, I could have been completely wrong too if the different judge had been hearing the case. Mm-hmm. I think, and the fact that when the case comes in, people understand the facts in such detail, mean that they accept the judgment because they understand where it's coming from. And between us, we work together. And to say, there's very little crowing about it either. You get on with the job. So in other words, you build your knowledge, your reputation off other people as well as doing it yourself. You have to read the books, you have to pay attention. But certainly having an open mind is critically important. I think you need to, especially as a younger surveyor, you need to work very well with the people around you.
Yeah. So do you remember your first client? The first person straight to you?
Yes, in fact, I did my year out, my summer year at the Property Services Agency, which was the government property department. So didn't have a client there really. We had a team of people we worked for. But when I graduated, my very first job was Barclays Bank on the highway in East London.
All right.
Where I was sent out on my own to prepare a full spec for external redecoration and repair, which I would never do for a young graduate now. So that was my first one. It kind of went all right. I still don't know whether we needed to replace all the roof slates, but they got done anyway. But,
and how did you get
it? Looked good.
How did you get it? Was it through the person you were working for at that time, or was?
Yeah, I worked for a firm called Calder Ashby, which was based in Crystal Palace. Really nice firm. It suffered badly in the recession that followed, and my team leader, basically the associate in charge, just said, "Right, here's one for you. Go and do it." So that was it. And you had backup, of course. Someone read the specification, looked at the photographs, so you had to back up when you got back.
All right, good. That's always helpful.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And so if you had to, to give some advice to someone who wants to get into the party wall business as such, how do you start a practice from scratch? Or how do you, for people who act mainly for adjoining owners, people who scrap the land registry portal, how do you get them to get on the other side and start acting for more building owners? And
Well, the first thing I think is critical is that party wall surveying should not be an instant speciality. It really isn't. I think you're a surveyor first and a party wall surveyor second. Mm-hmm. When we talk about my first one being, a redecorated external repair of a building, large commercial building, I did a few years of a lot of construction work. Not necessarily the stuff we do in party walls now. Didn't do any household basement work, for example. But I did construction work, and we have a policy here where we prefer our surveyors. It doesn't always happen, but we prefer our young surveyors to come from a firm with a good building surveying background. We find they make the best party wall surveyors because they know what they're talking about, and they know the profession on a wider level. For example, they understand the client's requirements better. They understand costs better. They've applied law on a wider scale than just party wall law. So the answer for the people who are the ambulance chasers, there's too many people out there now who go straight into party wall surveying thinking there's a nice easy number to do, as I indeed thought when I was at college. But I think you should get the practice first. To be a good building owner surveyor, you have to know what you're doing. You're acting for developers. You're acting for big developers. I'm not just talking about household building owner. You're part of a project team that could be 20 or 30 people around the table. You need to understand what the team wants from you. And I think the party wall surveyor's role is to get off the critical path as fast as possible. You are not the important person in the room. In fact, you're one of the least important people in the room, or you should be one of the least important people in the room. You've got structural engineers that are designing massive structures. You need to just tell them what you need for the party wall bit of their work and then get it so you can then use it and move on with your party wall process. you need to understand the client's requirements. I'll give you an example. Is a surveyor could spend ages arguing over a finite bit of detail on a basement or over the adjoining owner's surveyor's fees. But I've got a job in the West End at the minute that while it was in demolition phase, delays were going to cost £10 million a month. You don't want to be holding up that job because you think the other surveyor is charging £1,000 too much. So, it's understanding the concept of that makes you a good building owner surveyor. And the best building owner surveyors are the ones who the clients can rely upon to know what they need from them. That's the difference. To be a know-all party wall surveyor is fine when you're acting for difficult adjoining owners and pleasing them. It isn't the job when you're acting for a development where you're just one cog that has to make the development work. And I think that's a big difference. And that's people who are dismissive of the specialist firms and wonder how some of the names out there get those names, don't realise how well those people, and I'm talking about main rivals of mine, how good they are at doing just that job, and how good they are at delivering and organising, and indeed persuading other surveyors and being reassuring to adjoining owners at the same time. It's quite a big role. It's an important role to build, and that's how you build a practice. That's why people come back to you without you marketing, and that's how you find people phone you up and say, "I spoke to my lawyer and he said I should phone you," which again the top firms get, and a number of firms get. But it is the way in which you do that. So the answer is to be. It's not to know everything about the Party Wall Act or to be the surveyor who finds the problem. It's being the one who can get the answers and make it work.
There's quite a wide skill set. You got to be able to manage, do project management. You got to be able to make yourself small when it needs to be, and big yourself up when in other circumstances. And so what kind of the other kind of skills that someone should develop for or work on if they wanted to get their foot in the door. So it's
on the technical side, I mean, there's personality and style, and there's technical personality. One of the things I would say is for party wall surveyors is be relentlessly nice to everybody. Literally, I mean, there's no reason to be unpleasant to anybody. If they send you a stupid comment, reply explaining nicely why they're wrong. If you're right, they'll concede very quickly, for example. But to get there in the first place, you have to be right. You have to know what you're talking about. I think you need to read. You need to know the books. Mm-hmm. You need to know some of the case law. But I wouldn't get hung up on it. I think quoting case law in normal correspondence is a sign of weakness, personally. You should be able to explain why something is without saying it's because of X case, unless you need to, unless you're pinning down or just steering somebody towards a principle that's in one case rather than another one. And I think construction, you need to know your construction. You need to look at the drawings. An example for a building owner surveyor is there's a big tendency, especially for those on fixed fees, to push a bundle of documents across to an adjoining owner surveyor and let them sort out what they want out of that bundle. That's not acceptable. A building owner surveyor has to know what they're seeing. They need to understand what they're seeing, and they need to have pruned it themselves before they pass it on. And the reason they need to do that partly is so that they understand the project they're on, but they learn. You go back to the team and say, what is this detail? Why have you done this? Isn't this foundation a bit slender? And they'll explain why it isn't and why they've designed it that way. You learn on the job doing that. I mean, interestingly, one of the best meetings on site I ever had was on a job in Kensington where I'm acting for a very large, very, very expensive house with overseas wealthy clients on my side. And we were concerned about movement, big basement being dug. And a young structural engineer, gave the party wall surveyors a sort of 20-minute masterclass in geotechnical movement in the site hut. It was brilliant. It was aimed at surveyors, so it had no maths in it. It was all about pictures and impact, how it works. And it was very effective. And ever since then, I can talk more intelligently about basement geotechnical movements and what's expected. And I was pretty experienced there when I had that, and it was still valuable to me.
Yeah.
So you don't know it all. So I think for a young surveyor, it's listen to other people work. And I think the other thing is don't rush into setting something up too quickly. You can set up a business at 25 and do quite well out of it, actually. There's a big value in working with other people for some time. and getting the experience of your colleagues and how they work and what they know. And then when you set up a firm, you are, or you go to a specialisation, or you go into a big firm to set your own specialist team up, which is what some people do. You can do it well because you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It goes back to the basics. You need to be a good surveyor first.
Mm-hmm. So there's no way around. Work your way through it, basically. It's really.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that there are jobs in the property industry, in surveying. There's two types of building surveying, really. The two extremes of building surveying. They're the people who do one job at a time in very great depth, and they're, for example, the project managers on the very complex projects. And then you get the other extreme where the people handle 100, 150 projects at a time in lots of small bits. And that is the busy party wall surveyor. Mm. So you need to be able to handle that. You need to have the mindset that holds a lot of information very quickly. To give you an example, there are sometimes as third surveyor, I have to vet adjoining owner surveyor's fees when it comes as a third surveyor referral. And I look at it, and every couple of weeks, there's half an hour down for reviewing the file and catching up with something. Well, it's not really very acceptable. You haven't got the brain that can hold that information, even if you've done 100 things since. Hold most of the information so you know what you're looking at when it arrives. You shouldn't be charging, for example, the sort of fees that some people are charging for doing that. If you charge a high fee, you should be able to do things very quickly.
Yeah. So that actually brings us nicely into what kind of tools do you use to actually make your life easier and to try and empty that brain from now?
Yeah, not enough, probably. I think being on top of workload is the obvious one, and that's where the mobile devices now make such a big difference. Mm-hmm. The use of iPads and smartphones and so on is useful. We do trackers for party wall work as a building owner side, a simple spreadsheet that has the details on it of who everybody is, who their surveyors are, and comments. We use different detail for different projects. Some projects we need to send the clients a spreadsheet every couple of weeks that has to have something new on it. Other times it's just really an aide-memoire for who's who. But we largely rely on the surveyors to do it for themselves and work the way they do best within the framework of the systems we have in the office.
Yeah. And any tools that you wish you had?
Well, the biggest problem with it's very easy in party wall surveying to be reactive, so you always wait for someone else to respond. I think the tools that are always useful is to be able to know when you should be chasing things, and not just relying on other people doing it, telling you that you should be chasing or responding to you, so you actually don't have to chase them. I think that's one of the main ones. As we go through very busy cycles, people will tend to deal with what's forced to the top of their list. And you need to be on top of the list. So I think it's reminders is some people are better at it than others and do it their own way.
Yeah, because I guess with party wall, it's no news is bad news, right? Means that
frequently.
One that means that you need to do something about it.
It is, and of course it's how you do it as well. You've got to be careful about over automating things. So, for example, the use of the 10-day notice. In my experience, we hardly ever use it here. Hardly ever even jokingly use it because people do tend to take offence. You can write to somebody and try and get a quicker response off them by sort of a polite request most of the time. But if you've forgotten to chase something and it's become critical on the project, then you've got problems on your hands.
Yeah,
that's when you rely on your personality. I've got one of my colleagues had just been on holiday and did what I always had to rely upon a lot more, which was call in the favours in the last 10 days before you go away. And we had several awards going out every day for the last 4 days before she went off, and completely cleared the workload down because she's highly regarded and people will always help her out. So actually that's one of the advantages, by the way, of doing things. You can get things done, quite effectively. But also it just showed that everything was on top and capable of being completed too.
Yeah. And so to kind of conclude, so I'm a surveyor. I've done it for 5-6 years. I've got an interest in party wall matters. where do I start? Where do I go to try and get more involved in it? Should I join the P&T club, or
Yeah, I'd definitely join the P&T club. There's no barrier to entry apart from being a professional in construction. I would do talks. The P&T club does the Theodore Bullfrog talks, which are the junior-based ones. They're normally full. They're very cheap. It's something like £12 for a decent talk and free food and drink. And it's a good way to network young surveyors of similar experience and more experience, which is particularly useful. I think you can't underemphasize the importance of talking to these things with your peers, not just your superiors.
mm,
I think that is critically important. I think someone here can speak to me and they'll get an answer, but if they speak to one of their colleagues at the same level, they'll end up with more of a debate and a discussion, and someone will get the book out and have a look. You can get a lot of depth. It can be as useful. So I think they should do that. I think they should decide where they're working or what they're doing. I mean, I got a lot of my first good experience working in a general building surveying firm and then in a multidisciplinary firm, getting quite a lot of the party wall work, but with good clients. And that got me the experience without having to do full-on party walls and nothing else, and led me into what I do. So I don't think someone should necessarily think you have to go and work for a firm like ours straight away in order to get all that experience. I think you can get it with a wider range and then build that speciality as you know you want to do it. But by all means, if someone has a year or two's experience and wants to work for a specialist firm and they know they want to, then that's absolutely fine. The other thing to watch out for, of course, is you come to a firm like ours and some of our rivals, without sufficient construction experience, getting chartered is very difficult. We have great clients, really good work, very good experience with very good teams, the best architects, best engineers. But that's not the same as doing it yourself and getting through an APC. So, and I would say to anybody, no matter how tempting party wall surveying is and how lucrative it may appear if you're going to get a good, well-paid job, you've got to think about whether you would want to go through your career not having got chartered or having to go back and do it. And I think it's worth having it. So, and also by getting chartered, you have done what a firm like ours needs to know that you're going to be a competent surveyor doing the job. So, we have surveyors who aren't chartered and they do a perfectly sound job. I think people should aim to get chartered first and target firms like ours for where they come to after that.
Yeah. How easy is it for you guys to find the right people?
Not always that easy, funnily enough. If there are people who really want to come to our field, we're competing with the other firms when they're looking. There are people who are worried about being a specialist, even though they're good at it. And it's getting the right people. There's plenty of people who think this is what they want to do or think that they're the perfect person and their CV isn't good enough, just isn't right. If you've got too much of the wrong side experience, I happen to think having consultant experience is more important than client side for our particular way we work with our clients. So you have to find that as well. But that's just us. So we sometimes have difficulty. I mean, the hardest thing is getting the young, well-experienced surveyors because they're gold dust.
Yeah.
Someone just chartered with a good range of experience is always going to be in demand because of what they can bring. That said, we have a full team at the moment, and we've recently just taken someone else on, so it's going quite well.
That's good. Great. Well, Alistair, thank you so much for your time. And
that's okay.
I'm sure I'll see you around.
Brilliant. Look forward to seeing you.
Bye-bye then.
Take care now.